welcome to the Church Office podcast. And if you're watching on video, then thank you for joining us. Gaz is back by popular demand.
My mum's been writing in, has she?
Your mum's called me a few times, said she loved the podcast. Can we do it all again? No, I've actually had 2 texts from people who've got hold of the podcast and said their favourite one was you, mate.
Oh, come on.
So, like, getting back was basically the message. So, I felt like just handing over the podcast to you.
No. You are definitely the expert at this.
Oh, I don't know about that, mate. I wish that was true. But, so you've been well since the last time we got together?
Yeah, really well. I'm trying to think. Have we had Christmas? Was it after Christmas
Yeah, it was something like that, wasn't it?
Did this, yeah. Well, I think, as well as you can be in this season. Do you know what I mean? I think, things just changing all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nice to see another face.
It's good to see you, isn't it? Yeah. It's that season, isn't it, of planning, replanning, and then you scrap all your plans and you start again. Yeah. It is a bit like that, isn't it?
It is a little bit like that. And I think we are maybe getting to a season now where more and more leaders I've been talking to, even just this last week, there seems to be a bit more hope around, a bit more, okay, well, let's start thinking about what does summer look like and things like that. So, I think it's changed a little bit the last couple of weeks, hasn't it? Which is cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, God's been good, isn't he? That, like, a vaccine's on the scene.
Yeah.
Like, people are getting them done. My dad's been done this week, and that's just a great relief, isn't it, for people, like, whose families who might be concerned about loved ones, but to get a vaccine in place is class, so.
Yeah, it is. And I think you can just see that in people's lives, that suddenly there's new hope, and I think spring's around the corner, which is great, and we're so thankful for that.
Exciting stuff.
Yes.
So, mate, tonight we're doing a podcast together. We've kind of set the topic at mistakes we've made, because it's easy to listen to a podcast and to think, oh, these guys are the experts, or they know all the answers. And I think, we both agree that is far from the truth, isn't it? In many ways, is that, we've got experience because we've done it for a number of years. But at the same time, like, we need God's grace every day, there are mistakes that you make, and you have to look back and laugh at them, don't you?
Yeah.
And you do learn from them, and so that's kind of like where we're taking the podcast today. And then things that we wished we'd known about before we started, and we got a couple of talking points on that. So I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Look forward to it,
mate. Happy days.
Yeah.
Do you want me to kick this off, or are you going to go?
Yeah, you can kick us off, and I'll.
Okay.
There's some good ones there. You can go first.
Okay, so mistakes. Where do we begin? Where do we start? I mean, the one that comes straight to mind for me is the Christchurch speed bumps. And I had an absolute horror one day. So somebody comes to the office and they gave me this story of, right, we're working on the roads down the road. We've got some leftover tarmac. Do you fancy, having some potholes and stuff like repaired? So I'm thinking, he said it'll do us a favour, and it'll do you a favour. So I'm like, right, okay. It's early on in my sort of career here as church administrator, couple of years into it, and everyone around me is encouraging me to take initiative. So I'm like, this is class. This is right. I'm going to shine here. I'm going to sort out all the potholes, and like everyone's going to come in Sunday and go like, amazing. Who is this church administrator? I give him a 20-year contract. Sign him up now for 20 years. And so anyway, so I sign up to this thing, and we agree a price on per square meter and stuff. And I'm thinking, great, okay. And then my wife's saying to me, like, did he mean feet or did he mean like meters? I'm saying, no, definitely meters. And she's like, you might want to clarify that. So anyway, the guy turns up the next day for the thing, right? And he's here, like, he must be here 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, I'm checking the CCTV cameras. I'm thinking, why is this guy so early? And he started digging up like 4 or 5 meters worth of car park to the point where there's no return now. Like, you can't just stop. Like, this isn't a pothole repair. This is a whole road repair. And so I get the bill at the end, and it's like a couple of £1,000. And I'm thinking, this is my time to shine. And then in fact, it went bad. Yeah. So I get on the phone to the boss. I'm like, Pete, mate, you won't believe it. And So now the team know about it. Not many of the people in the church know about it, but it's the Christ Church speed bumps.
Come on.
So when you see all the different levels of Tarmac, you know that it relates to first my mistake, one of my big mistakes. So yeah, and I've heard that story like 4 or 5 times. Different people will come up. So it is a proper scam if you're watching and somebody comes to you and says, "We can do you a favour. We've got some leftover tarmac. We're down the road. We can come now." I'm like,
don't fall for it.
Don't fall for it. Yeah, don't fall for it.
Wisdom right there. See, I wish we had a car park to Tarmac. So see, there's 2 sides to this story.
It is, yeah. Car park management, yeah. Stick it on the list.
Wish to have a public road.
It's great, yeah. You're going to upset the neighbours with the parking.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, it's true. So, any mistakes that you've made?
I would love to say no, none at all, but that would be lying to you. So, I think one thing my wife often says to me, especially in work, I speak a lot around parenting and family life, as well as being involved with the church. And often we kind of hear lovely, perfect stories of parenting.
Yeah.
And especially in this world where a lot of things are online,
Yeah.
amount of times where I've recorded something and she's watched it, and I've walked into the kitchen and she's looked at me and gone, "Well, you've only told a little bit of the truth there, haven't you?" She said, "You always tell the stories which make you look good and me not so good." She was like, "Maybe I should come on and balance it out."
Yeah.
So, yeah, many mistakes. I think one of the ones for us was, it was probably about this time last year, maybe a little bit earlier in the year, when we were celebrating our 5th anniversary as the church. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to get new like flags and banners for outside where we met. And we used to meet at a big high school. So signage was key, because there's so much going on at the high school on a Sunday. People, especially visitors, needed to know. So we wanted to order these new like teardrop banners. And we had previous ones, and they are just goes either side of a door kind of thing, just normal size. So we, my wife did the design for them, looked beautiful, and she was like, "These are the ones we ordered last time." So ordered them. They arrived, I think, maybe on the Thursday, and we thought, okay, well, they're just normal. We don't need to set them up.
No need to check them.
No, don't need to check them. So on the Sunday, ready for church, like the setup team was in there, and then one of the guys come in and was like, "Gaz, like, I don't know if these banners are what we need." I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Where are they supposed to go?" And I said, "Either side of the door." He's like, "Well, come see them." And I was like, "You're setting them up wrong." So I turned around the corner into the yard where he was setting up. Problem was, the reason why he was setting them up in the yard was they were too big to set up inside. The problem was, we set them up and they were the size of like this building.
Oh my word.
They were literally like probably double the size of a house.
Oh no.
We had accidentally ordered stadium banners.
Oh no.
Instead of teardrop banners for our lovely little church doors. But the problem, if that wasn't hard enough, so on the Sunday we obviously didn't have them.
Yeah.
In the correspondence with this company, who were in Germany, I think.
Okay.
And it kept getting sent around their office. But every time they were in communication with us, they wanted us to set it up for them. So every time we were kind of going back and forth, they're the wrong ones. They were like, they can't be the wrong ones. And we're like, they're huge. We were setting them up in our garden, in the car park of our office, everywhere. So, yeah, we ordered the wrong ones. And even to this day, we haven't got the right size ones. So, yeah, that's one of our mistakes.
Yeah, that is horrible, isn't it? When you've got print or something like that. Spelling mistake, typo. Like there was a season where our senior pastor Pete Greasy basically like banned me from doing any kind of print, unless it was checked by like 4 or 5 people, and totally banned from it. I mean, some of the other mistakes I've made. I don't know if you're responsible for announcements at your church, but like this is a horror for me. And it's like when there's a new baby comes up and the names are getting more and more complicated. So I've got this name of this kid, bless his heart, and instead of saying Gabriel, I called who's a lad, a little boy who was born. I announced that Gabrielle had been born, and it was an absolute horrible moment in church. Total silence. The picture, the name, it doesn't work, and I'm on the stage, and I cannot get the name in my head. I'm like, Gabriel, cannot get this Gabriel in my head. And the kid's 11 now or something, and he's in church. Every time I walk past, I'm like, oh, sorry, mate. So sorry. Called you the wrong name.
I know. And like, even on that, I was just thinking then, and like when he said about typos, I remember this one time, like the words in church, you know, when you sing. And I remember everyone singing. The line was, your love poured out or something like that. Yeah. Or love pour. Love and pour was the two words. But instead of pour, it had poo. I don't quite know how we managed to like typing it up because like on the laptop, because it was one of the songs, and you're like, you only realise it during worship. It's far too late then. Because everyone, and it's one of those times now, everyone remembers that song. We can't sing it anymore.
Yeah. The song's gone. Scrapped.
I love that. And even, and thankfully that wasn't my mistake, that was my wife's mistake. But like I said, we would do church at a high school before COVID. Yeah. And I remember this one summer, we were doing baptismals. Yeah. What are two things you need for a baptismal? Let me ask you this question.
A baptismal pool.
Yes.
And some water.
And water. We had one of those two. So on the Sunday, and again, we can't get into the building early or the day before to set it up because it's outside. Yeah. So we got there, had the pool. Yeah. The problem was we had water, but didn't have a long enough water source to get from the tap to the thing. So you had all these people coming. Thankfully, we did manage to get a hose, but it was literally moments. Just like literally the pool is being filled up as people are arriving. Yeah. And it was cold because we couldn't get it heated up in time.
Oh, but hey. Baptismal pools are a challenge unless you've got one sort of like built into your stage, or you know, this existing. Like we've got a it's basically like a giant fishery kind of pool, which you got steps into, and it takes us on our hose about 3 days to fill up, and then it takes literally about a week to heat the thing up. It's so much water, and we had the fire service one day thinking, oh great, we'll get them in and they'll fill it up really quickly. So they like connected everything up, filled the thing up, and then I go and check it out to see what it's like, and it's like silty and all like floaty bits in it and stuff like that. And the guy says, oh yeah, don't worry, it's at the end of the run. And I'm thinking, yeah, but this is a baptismal pool. Like we got like 500 people coming for this baptism, and we can't have the pool stinking. And so we had to empty it, and the poor people getting baptized that week because we had to empty it, clean it, refill it. Like the water was running literally 24 hours. You know, we had someone posted here, and I think it was the same weekend that somebody accidentally split the pool. So we're talking like 4 days to fill up, and the water just flowed out onto the whole carpet, and it took us days and days to clean up.
Oh man,
horror, absolute horror.
That is.
Yeah, funny. So
at least you can laugh about the mistakes now, isn't it?
You have to laugh about them, don't you? Because you do. You know, in the moment when you see the water just gushing out of this pool, you think, oh my goodness. But now you laugh at it. You think, yeah, that's great. We had people who brought their surfboards and chucked them in the water. All sorts of crazy stuff like that. So
love it.
So yeah, a few mistakes. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Is there anything else? I did write a kind of short list of mistakes. Oh yeah, now this is an interesting point. So one of the things that as administrators we have to be careful of is not to kind of burn people out, do we? And kind of like wear them out. And I don't know if you're in a situation that in church, and maybe your experience as well if you're listening, is that people love to say yes, don't they? They want to help, they want to get involved. So I'm big on Christmas, right? Love Christmas, absolutely love it. So I go to the church meeting and I'm like, right, can we set aside some money to decorate the outside of our building in the most outrageous way possible, right? And then as people drive past on the motorway or people come and visit, like it'll be a talking point, you know, and gospel, right? Let's, you know, do you see that crazy building? Yeah, that's where I go to church. Yeah, let me tell you about Jesus.
I like it.
And that was the link. And so I proposed at the church building and had quite a lot of enthusiasm. And so I thought it'd be great to do these like 1 meter high letters and like Happy Christmas right across the top of the building. Beautiful. Like, you know, 15 meters long, whatever, class thing. So I've gathered a group of people to do it, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to take a couple of nights. Like, Well, like after about week 4, like literally on the day we're launching like a kind of Christmas market, Christmas light switch on, the guys are still on the roof hanging the lights, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, it looks great, but then it's like it's slightly wonky coming down the building, and the other guys in the staff team were like, this was the worst idea ever. They're never going to get them straight. You've worn people out. People look at that and go, that is just so rubbish. So future years, I had to come up with a different idea, and that's where I came up with the giant star idea. And the Star of Newport, 5 meters high, 2.5 meters wide, beautifully lit up.
Come on,
mate.
See.
Get the
Simpler.
star up there. So much simpler. So much simpler. So yeah. Anything else? Any other mistakes before we move on?
I'm sure there's many. I'm sure my wife will remind me of some.
Yeah, you like to put them out the back.
Yeah. I like to forget them. Obviously there's been times where we use a lot of hired buildings.
Yeah.
So there's been times where our worship team or we've turned up to church, but the building hasn't been open.
Yeah.
So we've literally had to be in the car park.
Yeah.
Getting ready, and then as literally church starts, then the caretaker turns up. We've had a few of those, and it always kind of falls on, even though I'm not the one opening, it's like, well, why didn't you touch base? And you're like, oh yeah, okay. So you have this never-ending list of things on hired buildings.
Yeah, I've had things like that. Yeah, you've forgotten to hire a coach, or the wrong email's gone, or it hasn't sent, and you know, and people are great in the church, aren't they? They are patient and kind.
Yes.
And gracious, and you know, I experienced a lot of that, particularly early on when I'm thinking, who is this kid? What is he doing? Does he have a clue? I mean, no, don't have any clue.
It is true, and I suppose even on that, and like when you were saying about the Christmas thing, is sometimes we don't then want to try new things or release people because we get put off by those things.
Yeah.
And it's that balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between, not taking too much on or kind of that, but not always doing the same thing either.
Yeah. Because I love it, and I think it is a real balance, isn't it? Of like motivating people, bringing people together for projects is great. And the guys involved in it loved it, you know, and the process they loved. But by the end, I could look back at it and go, oh yeah, it didn't work, you know. I think it was like midnight one night before the event. We're still trying to hang these lights up on the roof, you know, like you've seen the size of our building. And like, I'm like, they've lowered a bucket and I'm passing like KFC to them like 12:30 at night, and you know, got their wives texting me saying like, why is my husband not home yet? He's on the church roof, he'll be all right, don't worry. You know, great times.
And that's the thing, and sometimes the idea is great, isn't it? And because I was just thinking then, one of the previous buildings we used to use, it was just a community hall.
Yeah.
So it was quite a bland room, and they actually allowed us to paint it.
Oh, really?
Which was bizarre because we only used it, which was amazing. But we thought, oh, do you know what? There was a scripture which was for such a time as this for us. Yeah. And it was kind of the big thing for us as a church. So we thought, do you know what? On the back of the stage, which we set up every week, we're going to make this massive pallet board sign, which will hang. Yeah. So we made it, and it was, I don't know, maybe 6 foot high. Okay. And maybe 12 foot. It was huge. Yeah. It's now in a furniture store.
Is that right?
Yeah, because we don't use it anymore. But basically, it was huge. It was really heavy. But it was lovely. It looked brilliant. Yeah. But we didn't think about the fact that every single week, 4 of us would have to stand on chairs and hang it every single week and take it down because it couldn't stay up there. Yeah. But it was a lovely idea.
It's a great idea, just totally impractical.
But after week 6, it was like, okay, maybe next time, should we just use canvas or something like that? A bit lighter, but yeah.
Yeah, funny. I remember organising a trip to America, and kind of there was this men's conference going. So we took like 50 guys over, like booked it, and I coordinated all of this, and all the flights, all the hotels, all the stuff. And we had to hire like so many cars to fit everyone in and stuff like that, and I was coordinating all the drivers and stuff, and got that totally wrong. So literally got one car without a driver, and fortunately enough somebody had their driving license with them, but it was like a narrow escape of like, we're in America, we can't transport anyone, nobody else has got a license because they haven't been told to bring one. No. It's not the sort of thing you carry when you go abroad, is it? If you're not driving, it's like, yeah, so got out of jail a few times like that. Definitely. So yeah, there's lots to think about.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, lots of mistakes, but God's good, and
He is.
I've definitely been rescued a number of times.
It is true.
Rescued a couple of times by my wife. Sounds like you have as well.
Very much so.
Someone's jumped in. Families all jumped in. Yeah, the heating's not on. Quick, we've got to get down the building. Quick.
Yeah.
Turn it on. Done that a few times. So yeah, the joy of it. So mate, that's it. We're not experts.
We're not.
And we make mistakes, and are the same as anyone else. We just got a podcast.
It's true.
Get yourself a podcast. Yeah,
Love it.
Great. Right, mate. Moving on. Okay, so things that we'd wish we'd known about before we started in these kind of roles. It's a good kind of question, kind of like reflective of like, people who might be starting up in these roles, like what's useful to know, what's helpful, what have been some of the challenges. I know that might be an interesting topic.
Yeah, love it.
So any top tips from you to kick us off?
Yeah, I think first off, my first thing would be like, it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we see administration as everything has to be perfect, because a lot of weight of expectation or responsibility weighs on it, which is so true.
Yeah.
And we want excellence and we want things to work well. Of course we do.
Yeah.
But how do we create, I suppose, first of all, for ourselves, that releasing that, do you know what? Some things just are out of your control.
Yeah.
And actually, how do you build upon them?
Yeah.
Because I think, like we joked about earlier, the danger is sometimes we make a little mistake and we go, because it's our personality, where we go, we'll never try that again.
Yeah.
But actually, I think God is calling us to try things.
Yeah.
But it's being okay with those mistakes.
Yeah.
And learn from them.
Yeah, and how you respond to them tells you so much more, doesn't it, about yourself? Yeah.
Yeah,
Being
and
able
on
to
that,
let that go.
you joked about the whole thing of the family being on board and do.
Yeah.
But I think there's a real reality to that. Sometimes, yes, the responsibility might be on you as an individual.
Yeah.
But like the guys in our church always laugh because I'm always like, who can I bring along with me? Like, if I'm going to pick up tables, I'm not going on my own.
Yeah.
Who can come with me? Or if I'm going down the church at 6 o'clock in the morning, who's coming with me?
Yeah.
Part of me, because I think that's good for connection and that kind of team spirit and stuff like that. But also, it's sharing the burden. Do you know what I mean? It's sharing that weight as well. And when I make mistakes, they can help me on that.
Absolutely
and
right.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. That's good. That's a good one. One of the things that came to mind straight away as we were kind of thinking about this is that in church, everyone loves to talk about church, don't they? It's like, and they love their local church. They're passionate about it. And so one of the things that I didn't expect, and I don't know why I didn't expect this, was that all the conversations I had with friends all outside of the church or outside of work were all related to the church. Yeah. So there was like no escape from, like, you're in work, you talk about church because you this is what you do, and then you leave work and you go to someone's house for dinner, or you go out on a date night and someone else from church turns up and they're talking to you about church. Yes. And it can be a real challenge, I think, to kind of separate your life, can't it? When you're in a full-time role or in a part-time or voluntary role, if you're carrying responsibility, it can be hard sometimes to kind of get that break, to get that time away. And it's true, isn't it? All our friends are all in the church. Yeah. I work with them. I manage some of them. And all of that whole mix is just complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
And difficult.
I think complicated is the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even on that, I suppose there's no escaping sometimes, isn't there? And I think in roles like this, where things like booking in for events or buildings being open or all those schedules and kind of things often sit on one person. Yeah. Actually, a lot of people we're working with are volunteers. Yeah. So actually, when there's a convenient time for them, it's sometimes an inconvenient time for. Right. So it's that balance. Like in this season where a lot of things are online, like we're finding that, do you know what, 10 o'clock on a Saturday night is a time where people contact us, and so it's how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's difficult. One of the things that, like, I raised it with Pete Greasy, my senior pastor here, and I was like, it's just like, what do I do? How do you get a break? And he just said to me, like, go and be friends with some unbelievers. Like, go and pursue relationships with people who aren't in the church, who aren't impressed that you're a pastor, who really got no interest in church, no interest in Jesus. Like, go and hang out with them. And so we sort of, like, our girls are really into ballet, and all 3 girls are into ballet. And we sort of started saying I said to my wife, like, let's pursue some relationships, not just the opportunity to evangelize and want to tell them about Jesus, we do, but also that ability just to hang and be yourself. And just, like, not have to talk about church, And so that was one recommendation, and something I would recommend if you're going into a full-time role, or you're carrying a level of responsibility like yourself or others, then find relationships and friendships outside the church. Like, I think that's absolutely crucial.
It is.
It gives you a bit of a break. That's not really interested in your job at all.
and I've found as well, because a lot of our really close friends are in leadership of our church, and we've also been times it's okay to say we're not going to talk about church now, or we're not going to talk about that function bit, and I think it's okay to do that as well.
Absolutely right.
And actually, sometimes not everything is as urgent as we think it is. So again, it's okay to say, if it's on a Saturday, go, do you know what? We'll talk about this Monday or Tuesday or whenever it works. Other things are urgent sometimes.
Absolutely right. And our senior pastor Pete here has been great at this as well. Like, he's really relational. So, like, we'll get together and stuff outside of work, but, like, he'll go, right, let's go and play golf together, or right, let's go to the pub and have a meal together, and just chill and just chat about like stuff that we're enjoying reading or watching. And, like, he organised for the team to go on a one of those, like, narrow boats. Oh, mate, what a day. And we just went out as a team, just like, nobody's going to talk about work today. We're just going to hang together and just enjoy it. And, like, you've got to build those things in. And if somebody like your senior pastor or someone else in your church is not doing some of those things, then look for ways that you can do that. And build friendships outside, and all those things are kind of important. But good friendships inside are important as well. So it is trying to find that balance, isn't it? Of,
it is.
Stuff. But
it is.
I think when you start a role, you feel like so excited, don't you, to be working at the church. It's such a privilege to be working. And somewhere along that journey, depending on whether you're in, like, year 1 or year 2, you begin to start to go, how do I do this? Like, I'm getting tired, or I'm finding this hard, and talk to people about it. Don't just kind of bottle those things up and
I think, like you're alluding to there, it's perfectly normal. I think even that's really releasing to.
It is.
You might feel frustrated right now in things, and that's normal, or you might feel tired or kind of hitting a wall, and that's normal. So how do we build upon that kind of thing and not let that be our dwelling place? I think is really important. And I think honest conversations are key there, isn't it? But I think that's really good. Another thing I was just thinking about something I wish I knew is, you don't always have to be the expert, or you don't always have to have the answer. But I think being committed to find the answer, I think that's really important in roles like this. I think sooner our teams or people we serve alongside realise we're not the expert on everything, I think is a really good thing. But actually, one of the things we try and do as teams is, okay, you ask me a question, and I'm not going to pretend I know the answer if I don't know it, but actually I'm going to commit to finding out. And I think that's a really good thing to do. And I think if you're just starting off in a role like this, is look at resources like the church office, look at what other churches are doing, because there's some really great things that you can learn off them.
Massively,
And it's not always about recreating the wheel, is it? I think that's so important.
I think that's right. And you're exactly right. Look around, draw others in, begin to build relationships with other churches, other people who are doing similar role to you. Like that makes a massive difference. We took a group of we were talking about our maintenance staff, and I wanted them to kind of like think totally differently about the building, and it's really hard, isn't it, when you've been in a role to like think differently and to think kind of outside the box. So we took them. So I took them on a road trip, right, the maintenance team, and we went to one like super big church, like 1,000 church in Peterborough, and then we went to like a really small church in the Welsh Valleys, and both were brilliant at kind of like running their buildings, but in a totally different way. And so we did this road trip to go and visit, and it really blew like our staff away of just like being able to go and look and go, oh, that's how they do that, or that's how they do that maintenance. And like the one building we went to, like they painted their whole building like every year. They had this like painting schedule, which was like brilliant. And they had this lady that had this trolley with every single paint pot labeled up, right, for every room. And when she like cleaned the room, and her job was to kind of like make this place look spotless, and she just went right across the building, just had like free reign to go across the building just to make it spotless. She would like touch up all the little bits on the walls and stuff like that with the color paint. And like that blew our guys away. It was like, wow, this is like real quality.
So good.
But like nobody's going to come up with that trolley idea of paint. Like,
no.
But our guys have implemented it, and it's like, it's brilliant. So stuff like that, like just connecting with other churches, and then
it's good.
It confirms like things that you're doing well, or things that you've got right, and things that you think, oh, actually, I could do that differently.
Yeah, it's been exposed to it, isn't it? Because if your role in church was to lead worship or to look after youth, there's lots of conferences and events, and if we think, oh, what is something which will really benefit my youth ministry? There's loads of events you could go to learn like top tips and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But when you're talking about some of this nuts and bolts, really the best way of learning, and there's great resources out there, but is actually going to churches or other people who are doing it and going, why do you do it like that? Yeah. Like, is there a better way of doing that? And I think also on that, sometimes to invite other people in to our context as well, and go, we do it like this, or we run our small groups like this, or the administration like this. Is there a better way? Yeah. And I think that's a really good thing to do as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, drawing from others massively helps. So, and it takes time to kind of build up those networks. Yeah. That's the thing, doesn't it? And you have to invest time into it. And that's a conversation to have with a senior leader and saying, right, is there a way that I can spend, an hour or 2 hours a month just go and visit in somewhere, go and connect with someone, go and have a lunch with someone. Yeah. You're a lunch and coffee man, mate. There's so much is done over those times, isn't there? It's not just getting together, but it's like drawing together and learning from each other and growing. Yeah, it is. Well, one of the other things I think is worth saying, things that I wish I'd known first of all, is understanding the different roles around us. So, like, I was thinking about this after. I was thinking that early on in my kind of role, I suppose, there were kind of different conflicts, I suppose, with different people's opinions on different things, So I've been brought in to kind of manage it and lead in the kind of background. And yet there are pastors who want to lead in a particular way or want something done in a particular way. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that or agree with that or struggle with that, And so, so one of the things that I have tried to do is try to learn and think about what are some of the things that like Pete Greasy, our senior pastor, is like, what's he like having a sleepless night over? Like, what is he worrying about? How does he work? How does he think? Like, what does he, what's really important to him? Yeah. And being aware of some of those things in your different sort of team or leadership dynamics do make a difference, because I'm going to approach a subject and it seems obvious in a totally different way to how he's going to approach it, how someone else is going to approach it on the team. And there's got to be that kind of that grace and that humility that people are going to look at this in different ways. And there isn't one way to do it. And I think as a church administrator and I'm the manager, my way's the best. And it's easy to come across that way and for that to be the experience of those other people who are sitting in the room with you. Yeah, very true. And actually, I think I think there's probably been some hard lessons to learn in that, isn't there? Of times where you go, I haven't been brought into a conversation. Why have I not been brought into this? Yeah. Well, because you're not useful. You're not helpful. You want it your way, and we don't want to just go that narrow. So we haven't invited you into the conversation, and you think, that's gutting. And you have all those kind of challenges going on in the different dynamics. But I think that awareness that actually, I'm paid to bring a perspective, and Pete, our senior pastor, is going to be bringing a perspective that's totally different. Yeah, very true. And we've got different roles. We're going to approach it in different ways. And we need to kind of, you've talked about before, we need to work together. We need to respect those differences. And we're going to go on a journey together as a team. Yeah. And so, not that we're going to compromise, but there's got to be humility. I think you want to cultivate that early on in kind of your ministry, or early on in the kind of church administration role, is how can you listen to others? How can you show kindness? How can you draw others in? How can you ask more questions and then bring more statements about something? And those things are important,
Very good.
Because you talked before about last podcast that really stuck with me is that trust. They trust our voice and I trust their voice. That is the kind of place that you want to get to. That just really brings that clarity of that.
It's true.
And that point.
That's not built overnight, is it? As we know, and sometimes you only learn it when it's abused or when you've missed it, kind of thing. And I think trust is really important. And on that is when you understand the roles, you celebrate the difference and you celebrate the uniqueness. Yeah. And I think we have to be secure enough in knowing that not every idea or everything that we create is the right thing. Yeah. Because it's never going to be. I'm one person, you're one person. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of team, isn't it? Is actually, how do we realize we have the same goal? Yeah. But we all are playing different parts to achieve that goal. Yeah. And actually, I think when we celebrate that there is room for everyone around the table then. Yeah. Because actually, there's been times I've walked out of a meeting going, okay, actually, it's not what I would choose, maybe. Yeah. But actually, we're on board, and how do we make this work? Yeah. Because we've talked about it, we've prayed about it. Yeah. And I realised that if it was always my way, it would look exactly the same every single time we do it, because that's my strength. Yeah. I'll play into my strength. But actually, there's a fullness when we all come together in that. Yeah,
absolutely right. And it's also recognising, isn't it, that God's made us a particular way and he's called us to serve in this church in this way. And so there have been times where I've sat in a meeting and if I'd stayed silent on the other side, then we would have got into trouble in some ways, because we wouldn't have been sort of meeting a legal thing, or we'd be going off somewhere, and I'm thinking there's potential risk there. And these guys don't think about it like that. But there are times where I've spoken up and gone, right, let's not do that. Can we reconsider this? And it's helped a lot, isn't it? So it's not just like going, humility looks like I stand back and I don't say, but it's just going, I'm going to add something, but I'm not going to stand there and say I'm absolutely right every time. No, it's good. And where can I learn from others and hear what others got to say? And that those kind of self-awareness, that you're going to help the whole dynamics of your team by being like that, and hopefully there's some people on the team who model that in the same way as well. So
it's good.
It's those are a couple of helpful things I think to
good, bro.
To really chew over. Okay, so we're talking about one of the things that we would have loved to have known before we started, and one of the challenges that I've always faced, and I'm sure the people that I've employed have had the same challenges with me as well, that you're friends with people, you're in the church with people, and then you hire these people for a job, and some have been great and some have been challenging, and like every job, you have great performance and you have average performance, don't you? Yeah. And all of that going on. And so it's a really tough thing, I think, to kind of manage people in churches and to work in a church. So everyone thinks working in a church is like the easiest job in the world. It's just like, it's great. You drink coffee and you talk about Jesus. And like you have these wonderful like team Bible studies. And it's just like, it's amazing. And like the reality is actually it's not. It's like any other workplace. Yeah, and like people come in, having a bad week, and it shows in their work. And I can have a bad week, and it's the same for me. People are like, oh, don't go near Gavin's office today. Somebody get him a coffee quick. Someone cheer him up a little bit. But those dynamics going on, and managing people then that are church members, and you're trying to do pastoral things, and you're trying to do kind of task-oriented things is really difficult, and I wish I had the answers.
I think one of the things I really see in it is because we've had some people who've worked for our church, and seasons change, don't they? Yeah. But they're still in the church, and I think one of the things I observe and I see with Lois is that really we need to value the person for the person. Yeah. And it's a job, do you know what I mean? And we know that there's calling and we know all those things, but actually, even when they're not doing the job, they still they're still valuable, and they still are part of the church. And I think that's really important. That actually, even when we're managing people, even when we're serving with people, that there might be staff and employment on the table, but they are still part of the church. And even if things change and seasons change, they still have a place. And I think that's really important in how we lead people and manage people there.
And churches typically can be informal, and I know not everyone likes to make it formal, but when you're kind of in a work situation, and you know, in a Christian organisation, you're going to find the same kind of challenges, I think, that are in church. That we're all Christians in this, so you do have to have those kind of clear boundaries, don't you?
You do.
You know, you do have to have those job descriptions. You do have to have those times where you sit down and have an honest conversation and you review stuff, and you're willing to hear from them how you're doing as a manager, because you know you can be making a right mess of it as well, and that's true. And when we all get busy, we all start, there's cracks that show, isn't there? And we all start to do it. So I think as much as I can, don't think about it as just a family working in the background. You've got to think about it as a workplace, and you've got to kind of maintain those things as best you can. So we'll get together at lunchtime sometimes and all gather around, and you know, before COVID, and have lunch together, and it's great, and those times are really cool. And we'll pray together in our team meetings and stuff, but we're still gonna have 10 points that I need you to do this week, and I need them done as best as you can do them. And if you don't do them, then that's going to have an impact on this and this. So like, tell me if you can't, and then we're going to pull together, and we're going to pull it to, you know, all together. But some of those formalities in the church get set aside because of friendship, because of church. And I suppose the point I'm making is that, you know, make it as formal as you can. Sometimes those things, you know, it feels cold sometimes, but it's important. So, you know, sat down with a new starter and gave them a contract, and they're like, you know, why do I need a contract? Like, I'm working at the church. Like, I don't need it. You know, like, I trust you, you trust me. And I'm like, yeah, but in 2 years' time, you might be sitting here thinking, what a nightmare boss he's been. Like, somebody sort him out. And, you know, like, a clear job description, a clear contract, you know, meeting all those kind of legal requirements are really important. So I think do those things right, and you'll find there'll be opportunities for informal and friendship in the workplace, but it's in the right way.
Very good.
So
it's good.
My
good
thoughts
wisdom
on that.
Great, mate.